Ukraine celebrates official Armed Forces Day every year on December 6th, and since recently the country's defenders have been honored on October 14th in observance of Cossack traditions. But it was in December 1991, precisely when the Verkhovna Rada adopted two important laws on defense and on the armed forces immediately after the referendum on independence and the presidential election. Ukraine inherited military infrastructure and equipment from the Soviet Union, which regarded the territory of Ukraine to be its important border in the West. According to the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe, independent Ukraine began to reduce both the number of troops and the fleet of military vehicles and aircraft by hundreds and thousands of units. In addition, after a few years, the country abandoned Soviet nuclear weapons so as not to be part of military blocs and to maintain neutrality. The annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014 caught Ukraine at a weak moment. The armed forces, the number of which had been reduced for 2 decades, were not ready for the subsequent invasion of Russian proxy troops into eastern regions of Ukraine. At a critical time for the country, regular armed forces and numerous volunteers came out to repulse the attack. We were in the town of Shastya, Luhansk region. I was at the second front line, at the third, at the first and zero front lines. In early 2016 we got to Avdiivka in the industrial zone. We got to Debaltseve, after which we were sent to Chernuhine, a village in Luhansk region. My comrades and I went on reconnaissance. We came back and came under crossfire. Veterans Dmitro Landar and Serhiy Pavlusha had served their country a long time ago and gone back home. The war turned out differently for everyone, but both found a new favorite work after it: entrepreneurship and rehabilitation, metal and wood. I'm involved in making items for interiors, watches, lamps, some kind of simple art objects. I do geometric wood carving and make these ornate wooden boxes. How did two veterans become craftsmen, and what do they find in their work for themselves? What components does Dmitro use to make his watches, lamps and robots? UATV tells the stories of two Ukrainians who are not used to retreating from challenges in either war or civilian life. Dmitro Landar has already had his own business, a company manufacturing metal structures that existed till 2014. In the summer of 2014, he left everything and tried to enlist in the armed forces. The military commissariat refused me for some reason, problems with the military ID. I went there again, but they refused again. But in the summer of 2014, I watched TV and there were constant lines. We recruit soldiers as volunteers and not a volunteer battalion. I already had such aspiration to join them. As a result, Dmitro joined the Golden Gate Battalion, the formation of a special police patrol service, where volunteers from all over Kyiv region were recruited. The soldiers of the battalion were already in the combat zone in August 2014. According to open sources, the Golden Gate Battalion fought off attacks in settlements near Luhansk that were captured by Russian-backed militants and even prepared to storm the city. But open invasion of Ukraine by regular Russian troops prevented these plans. A year later, the Golden Gate Battalion became part of the Kyiv Special Purpose Regiment, which defended Avdiivka, the closest suburb of Donetsk, near Donetsk International Airport. Dmitro prefers not to talk about the service. The main thing that he escaped unhurt. At the end of 2017, I already knew that I would quit, and I was thinking what to do in the future, and I would like this occupation to stay with me forever. I just had ideas to start making some kind of lamps. I wanted to make hand lamps. I entered word lamp into the search engine and found an article about these steampunk lamps. I saw works that seemed to me to be very cool. Prior to this, Dmitro had never even heard about steampunk in science fiction, and especially about design. Visually, they look like gears, elements of steam engines, and in general, aesthetics from the late 19th to early 20th centuries. Returning to Kyiv, Dmitro decided to try to do techno art, but for the first 2 months he was only preparing a workshop and tools, and he was actually looking for his style. The items are made out of piping pipes. Steampunkers call this style sanitary engineering. That is, when you can make it by using a key within 1 day, paint it within a second day. I refused to work in sanitary engineering style at the start, because it was not interesting at all, in any way for me.
То есть это стало для меня вообще неинтересно.
I just developed a
То
concept.
есть я вот просто разработал концепцию.
While Dmytro began to experiment in his workshop, Serhiy Pavlusha was recovering from a serious wound. He served in the 57th Separate Motorized Infantry Brigade, which was surrounded by Russian troops near Debaltseve, an important transport hub near Donetsk. During a shootout, a bullet hit Serhiy in the head and crushed part of his jaw. I underwent surgery twice, a bone transplant and decorative surgery. I spent from 2015 to 2018 recovered. I underwent surgery on 12 occasions. I went to the maxillofacial clinic once a week, where doctors made incisions in my body to pump out the pus. Serhiy not only suffered side effects because of loss of surgery, but he had to deal with the consequences of concussion. He suffered from hand tremors and jumps in blood pressure. Doctors at the Kyiv Rehabilitation Center tried to solve the problem by prescribing him various drugs, but Serhiy found his own recipe. My friends and I went out. We were sat in a smoking room and relaxing, and I just started shaking. My blood pressure rises. We quickly measured it with a tonometer. My blood pressure was 150 by 100. It's very high. And while the nurse went to get medicines to reduce my blood pressure, I quickly took a piece of board, a knife, and began carving. After 12 to 15 minutes, the pressure has returned to normal. Serhiy recalls that he made the first wooden box in 2016 as a gift for his mom, but only after that incident did he realize that carving is his main cure for spasm and high blood pressure. Serhiy found the online course of artisan Adolf Yuryev, and it turned out that there are even special kits for beginners with tools and blanks. You get a ready kit of tools. It is sent to the post office. You receive the box and unpack it, so you can start carving without any problems, and you will succeed in everything. They've also started wood carving courses that were held not far from the railway station. At that time, I was just lying in a rehabilitation center nearby. I learned about these courses, registered, and began to attend them. Having returned home to Kirovohrad region, Serhiy continued his involvement in wood carving and got quite good at it within just a year. Dmytro Landar needed the same time to create his own collection of techno art. Artisan veterans tell how it is made, especially for UATV. It's a rare talent to see the unusual in everyday things or even in rubbish. This is the starting point of his work for Dmytro. You saw some kind of old thing and imagined that this is a lamp or a steam locomotive. You can see anything in this thing. And then I began thinking what I can make out of it. One day I came to see my friend at the service station, and I spotted something. So I thought I would make a cool lamp out of it. The carburetor in the internal combustion engine mixes fuel with air in the best proportion and feeds the mixture into the cylinders. And this is the basis of the first series of steampunk lamps for Dmytro. I reviewed suitable carburetors to be able to make this lamp. I chose the Soviet carburetor K126N. It looked like this before. That is, this is a very old carburetor from a Soviet car. Firstly, it is a symmetrical one. It has a good stand. It has a window. That is, it was possible to make something out of it. So I used it in the work. Dmytro inserted a clock, steam gauge, and a lamp into the carburetor and twisted the sealing lamp. That is, not all the parts should be borrowed from other objects if the artisan's imagination requires more. Everyone asks me, is this a filter from your truck? I say no, this is not a filter, this is an item made by hand. That is, these rings are also cut from a pipe by using a lathe tool. This cap is made completely by hand, also by using a lathe tool. So it also takes a lot of time to make this ceiling lamp. Now Dmytro is able to make such a lamp in 2 weeks. It can be even longer if you string more decorative elements on it. The artisan is not always able to include everything that he intended in his work. The decorative elements may or may not fit the lamp. For example, you want to insert some part into the lamp, but it does not fit in. That's it. You sit like this, drinking tea and looking at this lamp for an hour, 2, 3 hours. If it does not fit, you can stop working and go away. Each new box is like a discovery for Serhiy Pavlusha. He does not yet have a proper joiner's bench to make the boxes, so he buys ready-made ones from the Lviv Woodworking Enterprise. And then the magic begins.
Робочий день в мене закінчується десь близько 10-11 вечора.
My working day ends about 10 to 11 a.m. I come back home and I start carving a wooden box. I make them until 3 to 4 a.m. I make a minimum amount of markings, but a beginner should mark everything. He should mark each opening, how to cut it and what patterns he wants to make. But I just looked at a box and I already know how the box will look. You just need to switch on your imagination and fantasy, and that's all.
Уяву свою потрібно трохи включати і фантазію, і все.
Serhiy believes that it will be enough for a beginner artisan to merely have the simplest tools for working with wood, slotted and rifled flags. This is a carpentry equivalent of an ordinary knife, a large semicircular chisel and a small 90 degrees angle chisel. Finished patterns can be processed with a wood stain and varnished.
Нагрузка на зір велика йде.
It is a lot of stress on the eyes because the chisel glints and you should avoid mistakes by using the stain. You should make precise, specific movements. I have an incentive to make each work unique in order for it to be a limited edition.
Стоїть робити так, щоб кожна робота не була, тобто було limited edition.
It should be a unique work without any equivalents.
Більше такої не було і все.
Serhiy is currently working on a special box for those who like to keep secrets. The pattern, as always, is complete improvisation.
Шкатулка.
This is an ornate wooden box with 2 secret drawers, which will later be cut out and disguised as carvings.
І будуть замасковані під різьбу. Дерево,
I use wood from a linden tree. There are 2 secret buttons. When pressed, the drawer is open. You can put different jewelry inside.
такі шухлядки. Ось такий вигляд буде мати.
You can also hide different sorts of stashes from your wife or husband. You can put golden teeth inside too.
Жартувати ж можна? Зуби золоті можуть ставити.
Serhiy is going to expand his workshop and make boxes to order. Dmytro lacks the equipment to work at full tilt, but he's already taking orders. One of the orders was made by the owner of a veteran pizzeria in Kiev, Leonid Ostaltsev, who was impressed by other works created by the artisan.
Он говорит, часы надо.
He ordered a clock. They're building a new hall, and so they need a clock. I agreed to make it. I wanted to make a special clock, but I don't have enough time. The veteran institution is associated with the war. That is, cartridges are inserted into the clock.
Часы подаются под...
I also wanted to insert flying bullets into it, because life is like a bullet and time is like a bullet. For example, the cartridge feed box. It had to be cut by hand, folded, and the rivets made too.
Ну, это пришлось вручную вырезать, гнуть, там, заклепки делать.
An ordinary electronic clock inserted into a clutch car box is sheathed with steel sheets. Dmytro welded on a gas manifold and his favorite pressure gauge below. In just 2.5 weeks, the clock was already hanging in a pizzeria and quickly became a local steampunk curiosity. Meanwhile, Serhiy visited the exhibition of veteran handmade stuff in Kiev as recommended by his friends.
Був присутній страх того, що
I had this fear that no one would appreciate my works and no one would need them.
я підготовив 4 шкатулки.
I made 4 boxes, brought them to an exhibition, and to be honest, I could never believe that people would come up,
Люди будуть
look at them, examine, and stroke them.
там гладити руками ті шкатулки, так розглядати все. В мене
All my boxes were bought in the course of the exhibition.
розкупили всі роботи.
То, что мы сейчас...
I use all the elements we see in everyday life. We like it, but nobody wears it, although it's beautiful. All of us have the same clocks at home and the same refrigerators. If someone does not use all these things, they contact people like me.
Холодильники. Если кому-то это уже не подходит, люди обращаются к таким людям, как я, например.
The production of unique things became not just a creative outlet for both Dmytro Lander and Serhiy Pavlush, but also a part of their personal adaptation after the war, and it's very important that others appreciated it. Today, dozens of veteran enterprises and workshops are opening up around Ukraine, which prove that despite all the trials, the country has a peaceful future.